The Korean War was on the front page. The Cold War was intensifying. Harry Truman was president, and America was entering a new age of suburban life, television and economic growth. And while history was being written, in the pockets of ordinary Americans was the 1951 P Jefferson nickel, a coin that on the surface is worth just 5 cents, but in the right condition can be worth thousands of dollars today. The basics. The Jefferson nickel had been in circulation since 1938. Designed by Felix Schlag, it replaced the Buffalo nickel and quickly became a cornerstone of American coinage. On the obverse, Thomas Jefferson faces left. Above, the words "In God We Trust" curve around the rim. To the right, Liberty, followed by the date 1951 and a small separating star. On the reverse, Jefferson's home, Monticello, stands with the Latin phrase "E pluribus unum" above. Beneath it are Monticello, 5 cents, and United States of America. The coin weighs 5 grams, is made of 75% copper and 25% nickel, and has a plain edge with a diameter of 21.2 millimeters. The mint mark D for Denver is placed on the reverse to the right of Monticello. Mintaga. The Denver Mint struck about 20.5 million nickels in 1951, compared to the Philadelphia Mint's 28 million and the San Francisco Mint's 7.8 million. The Denver issue sits right in the middle. It's not the lowest mintage, but it's still considered a semi-key date, and it becomes extremely valuable and high grade with full steps. Condition rarity. Now here's where things get interesting. Most 1951 D nickels you'll find in circulation are worn, and those are only worth 10 to 25 cents. But in mint state condition, the story changes. 63 around $5 to $10. Ferrocene between $20 and $40. S66 over $100, sometimes closer to $200. And then comes the full steps designation. Collectors prize Jefferson nickels where the steps of Monticello are sharp, complete, and fully separated. These are hard to find from 1951, especially from Denver. A 1951 D graded MS66. Full steps has sold for $3,000 to $5,000. The highest grade examples have broken the $10,000 mark at auction. That's an incredible leap for what began life as a simple nickel. Why full steps matter. The steps on Monticello are the ultimate challenge in Jefferson nickel collecting. The Denver Mint in 1951 often produced weak strikes, and coins circulated heavily, blurring the detail. That makes full steps examples extremely rare. It's those tiny lines, crisp, clear, uninterrupted steps, that separate a coin worth $1 from one worth 5 figures. Errors and varieties. Collectors also love the 1951 D for its errors and varieties. Repunched mint marks, RPMs. Some nickels show the D punched more than once, sometimes clearly visible to the naked eye. These can sell for $25 to $200, depending on sharpness. Off-center strikes, dramatic ones, where part of the design is missing, can bring $100 to $300. Clipped planches, where part of the blank is missing, often worth $30 to $100. Die cracks and cuds. Raised lines or broken sections of the die add collectible premiums, from $50 to over $150. These mistakes are reminders that even the mint wasn't perfect, and sometimes imperfection creates value. Historical context. Let's pause and look at 1951. The United States was deep in the Korean War. Nuclear tensions with the Soviet Union defined the early Cold War. At home, color television broadcasts were just beginning. Cars, suburban neighborhoods, and consumer goods were transforming the American lifestyle. And in Denver, over 20 million nickels rolled off the presses, coins that carried those changes in commerce. Grocery stores, diners, and gas stations. Today those nickels carry both history and hidden value. How to find one. So where do you actually find a 1951 D Jefferson nickel? Coin shops. Circulated pieces are easy to find, often in bargain bins. Coin shows. Perfect for certified mint state and full steps coins. Estate sales and flea markets. Sometimes overlooked by people who don't know what they have. Old coin jars or rolls, though rare, Nickels from the 1950s do still appear. Online auctions, eBay, Heritage, and great collections are the best sources for graded high-end examples. The trick is patience. Most are common, but the rare full steps examples are like needles in a haystack. Selling tips. If you own a 1951 D Jefferson nickel, circulated examples are best sold in groups or as part of Jefferson nickel sets. Uncirculated coins should always be stored in holders or flips to preserve luster. Full steps nickels are where the real value is. These should always be submitted to PCGS or NGC for grading. Certified coins command the strongest premiums. Rare RPMs or major errors should go through big auction houses like Heritage or Stack's Bowers, where serious collectors compete for them. The big closer. The 1951 D Jefferson nickel may look ordinary. It may look like the same nickel you'd find in pocket change. But hidden within it is a story of rarity, of history, and of incredible value. In circulated grades, it's only worth a few cents. In mint state, it's collectible. And with full steps, it can soar into the thousands, even over $10,000. So the next time you're holding an old nickel, take a close look at the date. If you see 1951, and if there's a little D mint mark next to Monticello, stop, look closely at the steps, because those few tiny lines might be the difference between an ordinary coin and a small fortune. Picture yourself opening an old cigar box full of coins. You shuffle through nickels and suddenly your eyes catch the date. 1950. And right under Monticello, a tiny D. At first it looks like just another nickel. But collectors know this is one of the most important Jefferson nickels ever struck. The 1950 D. A coin that, in the right condition, can sell for tens of thousands of dollars. Let's rewind to 1950. Harry Truman is president. The Korean War is breaking out. Gas costs 27 cents a gallon. A brand new house sells for $8,500. And at the Denver Mint, something unusual happens. That year, the Denver Mint struck just 2.6 million Jefferson nickels. To put that in perspective, Philadelphia struck over 9.8 million the same year. Other years had mintages in the tens of millions, even hundreds of millions. But 1950 D? Just 2.6 million. That made it the lowest mintage regular issue Jefferson nickel ever. Collectors noticed right away. Word spread quickly. People began saving rolls and rolls of 1950 D. Nickels straight from banks. It became one of the first modern hoarded coins. So yes, the 1950 D is rare in circulation, but surprisingly common in uncirculated rolls, and yet there's still a catch. Not every 1950 D is equal. Most saved coins are average mint state, but the truly high-grade gems, especially with full steps, are where the money is. Let's talk values. In circulated grades, a 1950 D might bring $15 to $25. In mint state 63, it's around $40–50. MS65 jumps to $100 or more. MS66 brings several hundred. And MS67, you're in the thousands. But full step nickels, the sharpest strikes with every line on Monticello, visible, are the holy grail. Auction history tells the story. One MS67 full step sold for $11,500. Another reached $13,800. A finer example pushed to $16,250. And the record stands at an incredible $17,625 for a single 1950 D nickel. That's right, $17,625 for a coin worth just 5 cents at face value. Now, what about varieties and errors? The 1950 D is famous mainly for its low mintage. But there are also repunched mint marks to watch for. Some coins show a double D, making them more collectible. Off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and die cracks are also out there, and they can bring hundreds or thousands depending on severity. Let's pause and picture the time again. 1950 was a year of change. The Cold War was heating up. The Korean War was just beginning. Television was becoming a household item. And in Denver, while the mint struck millions of coins, only a tiny fraction were nickels. The few that survived in blazing condition now serve as historical artifacts and then financial treasures. So how do you find a 1950 D today? Check old coin jars and inherited collections. Because so many were hoarded, entire rolls still turn up from estates. Sometimes collectors discover unopened, bank-wrapped rolls, A jackpot for nickel specialists. Coin shows, flea markets, and estate sales are all potential hunting grounds. If you find one, here's the path. Circulated or average examples. eBay, coin shows, or local shops are fine, but a high-grade example, especially full steps, needs to be authenticated and graded by PCGS or NGC. Once slabbed, it belongs in the big leagues. Heritage auctions. Stax Bauer's great collections. That's where advanced collectors compete for the finest known examples. And here's the big closer. The 1950 D Jefferson nickel is more than just pocket change. It's a legendary date in the series, a coin every collector knows. Most are worth a few dollars, maybe a few hundred in mint condition. But the best of the best, with sharp full steps, have realized 11,500, 13,800, 6,250, even 17,625s at auction, from 5 cents to 5 figures. All because of low mintage collector demand and the passage of time. So the next time you're flipping through nickels, don't ignore 1950. Look for that tiny D, because in the world of Jefferson nickels, few coins carry as much history, or as much value, as the 1950 D.
Picture this. It's 1947. The Second World War has just ended. Soldiers are coming home. The world is rebuilding. Factories that once made tanks and planes are now producing cars, radios and refrigerators. And at the US Mint, a familiar coin returns to its pre-war form, the Jefferson nickel. But here's the twist. Some of these simple 5-cent pieces, struck that very year, are worth over 16 to 800 today. That's right, a coin that once jingled in a soldier's pocket after the war could now be worth more than a car. Let's dig into the story. In 1947, America was booming again. People were moving to suburbs, buying homes, and starting families. The Jefferson nickel, introduced in 1938, had already become an American staple. During the war, from 1942 to 1945, the mint made special silver nickels, 35% silver, to save metal for the war effort. But in 1946, regular copper nickel nickels returned, and 1947 marked the second year back to normal production. 3 mints struck the 1947 nickel. Philadelphia, with no mint mark. Denver, marked with a small D. And San Francisco, with an S. Together, they produce more than 136 million nickels. Each weighs 5 grams, made of 75% copper and 25% nickel. Now that sounds common, but like every great coin story, the magic is in the details. The Philadelphia Mint struck about 95 million coins, the most. Denver made just over 37 million. And San Francisco made a little over 24 million, the lowest mintage that year. But even with those numbers, perfect coins are hard to find. Most 1947 nickels went straight into circulation. They were spent on gas, groceries, jukebox songs, and Coca-Colas. By the time collectors started saving, Jefferson nickels seriously in the 1960s and 70s, almost all of the 1947s were already worn. That's what makes pristine examples rare, especially ones showing full detail on the Monticello building on the back. Those little steps under the building, they're the key. Collectors call them full steps. If every step is sharply defined, with no breaks or flattening, the value can explode. Let's talk money. A 1947 nickel found in pocket change. Maybe worth 10 or 15 cents. An uncirculated one, shiny but lightly marked. $10 to $20. In high mint state, around MS65, it could bring 80 or to 120. In MS66, $300 to $400. But when those steps are crisp and unbroken, that's when we enter 5-figure territory. A 1947 with full steps once sold for $11,250. Another went for $12,950. A third incredibly sharp example brought $15,300. And the record price? A jaw-dropping $16,800 for a single nickel sold at auction. Imagine that, $16,800. $100 for 5 cents of copper and nickel. But why so rare? It's all about strike quality. The mint in the late 1940s didn't always apply strong pressure to the dies, and those fine details on Monticello wore down quickly. Only a few coins escaped with razor-sharp steps, and even fewer survived untouched. For 75 years. Now let's talk about errors and varieties, because that's where things get exciting for collectors. Some 1947 nickels have repunched mint marks, where the D or S was punched twice. Others show die cracks that look like tiny raised lines across the coin. A few have off-center strikes, where the design is shifted to one side, and some even have clipped planchets, where part of the coin's edge is missing. Depending on how dramatic the error is, those can fetch anywhere from a few hundred to several $1,000s. And then there are the proof-like surfaces, coins that, by chance, came out of brand new dies, giving them a mirror-like shine. Those can also command serious money. But beyond the numbers, this coin carries history. 1947 was the dawn of a new era. The US was rebuilding and redefining itself. The Cold War was beginning. Jackie Robinson had just broken baseball's color barrier. The first Ferris wheel opened at Disneyland's future site. And through it all, people carried these nickels, symbols of prosperity and post-war hope. Most were spent and forgotten, but a tiny few survived, locked away in rolls, jars, and drawers, waiting for someone to rediscover them decades later. And maybe, just maybe, one of those sits in your collection. So where could you find one today? Start with the simplest place: home, old jars, dresser drawers, coffee tins, or inherited boxes of change. Next, coin rolls. Collectors still find 1940s nickels in bank rolls occasionally. Pawn shops, estate sales, and flea markets are other treasure spots. Sometimes, a few dollars spent on old change can turn into hundreds or thousands in hidden value. Now, if you ever spot a 1947 nickel that looks clean, lustrous, and sharp, stop. Don't polish it. Don't rub it. Cleaning kills the value instantly. Instead, use a magnifying glass or a phone macro lens. Look at Monticello's steps. If you can see 5 or 6 clean, unbroken lines, congratulations. You might have something worth grading. Send it to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication. If it earns that full steps designation, its value jumps dramatically. Then list it in a professional auction, heritage auctions, Stack's Bowers, or Great Collections, where serious collectors compete for the finest survivors. Even without full steps, a beautiful mint state 1947 nickel is still a gem. It represents a story of America's post-war optimism, of craftsmanship, of survival, and that's why collectors love it. So here's the bottom line. Most 1947 Jefferson nickels are worth just a few cents, but the rare ones, the flawless, untouched, sharply struck pieces are treasures. Coins that fetched $11,250, $12,950, $15,300, even $16,800. From a pocket full of change to a 5-figure prize. That's the magic of coin collecting. So the next time you're sorting nickels, take a closer look at 1947. Because in those tiny steps on Monticello, you might just find your own piece of post-war gold.